We'll move on to the first item of the agenda, which is apologies for absence. We haven't got any apologies. We're all in attendance. So we'll move on to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest. Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare a personal interest on agenda item 3, annual empty property strategy report. I currently have an empty property that's under renovation.
Thanks, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Anna Williams-Price.
Thank you, Chair. I would also declare a personal interest in item 3, annual empty property strategy, as I currently have a vacant property for a period of 6 to 12 months, but I've sought advice and will remain in the meeting and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna Williams-Price. So we'll move on to the agenda item 3, which is the annual empty property strategy report. To consider the report from the Director of Governance and Resources, and I'll hand over to the Deputy Leader, Councillor David Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present the annual empty property strategy report, which provides an update on progress against the Council's empty property strategy 2022 to 26. The purpose of the strategy is to bring long-term empty homes back into use, helping to address housing need, improve neighbourhoods, and reduce the negative impacts that neglected empty properties can have on our communities. I am pleased to report that performance has once again exceeded our annual target. During 2025-26, a total of 47 long-term empty properties were brought back into use, representing 9.8% of the long-term empty stock and significantly exceeding the annual target of 7%. This means that since the strategy began, 170 properties have been returned to use, leaving the Council on course to achieve the overall target of bringing 200 empty homes back into use by the end of the strategy period. This success has been achieved through a combination of financial assistance, advice and guidance, enforcement activity, leasing schemes and collaborative work across Council services. The report also highlights the continued success of the National Empty Properties Grant Scheme, which has supported the renovation of numerous empty homes across the County Borough. The report further outlines outgoing enforcement and risk assessment work, particularly in relation to long-term and high-risk empty properties, ensuring that resources continue to be focused where they can have the greatest impact. I would like to thank the officers and partner services for their continued work in delivering these positive outcomes. The key highlights in the report: 47 long-term properties brought back into use during 25-26, annual performance of 9.8% exceeding the 7% target, 170 empty properties returned to use since the strategy commenced in 2022. Council remains on track to achieve the overall target of 200 properties by the end of the strategy period. National Empty Property Grant Scheme has delivered £522,000 worth of grant funding for completing projects in Merthyr. Continued enforcement and risk assessment activities targeting problem and long-term vacant properties, and development of a successor empty property strategy will commence ahead of the current strategy ending. The recommendation is that Cabinet notes the contents of the annual empty strategy report, and I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'm happy to second the report. So we'll open that up to members' questions.
No questions, Chair.
Thank you, Geraint. Members' comments?
No comments, Chair.
We'll take that to the vote then. Please, Geraint.
Okay, so if you could all vote, please. That's carried, Chair. It's carried, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just waiting for it to come off the screen. Oh, there we are. Great. Thanks. Agenda item 4 is the Quarter 4 Performance Risk and Finance Report 25-26. To consider the report of the Director of Governance and Resources and the Director of Finance. I will speak to this item. This report is the 4th quarterly update of the year. It considers performance, risk and finance together and forms part of our performance management process for 25-26. We have built on learning from previous processes and used feedback from neighbouring councils, officers, cabinet members and Audit Wales. Quarterly reporting will help improve visibility of data to enable more informed decisions to be made and increase accountability. The recommendation spans over two directorates, namely the Governance and Resources Directorate and the Finance Directorate. As such, it crosses two portfolio members, myself and Councillor Anna Williams-Price. The recommendations are as follows. At 2.1, progress on the management of the Council's corporate risks and the corporate risk register as the end of Q4 be approved. 2.2, progress against the Council's annual delivery plan Q4 and key performance indicators of the Council's corporate wellbeing plan Q4 be approved. 2.3, the proposed transfer of 1.455 million to earmark reserves as detailed in Appendix 5 of this report be approved. 2.4, the proposed transfer of the provisional net revenue budget surplus of 126,000 to general reserves be approved. And finally, 2.5, the provisional revenue outturn position for 25-26 financial year be approved. I so move. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Williams-Price.
Chair, happy to second.
Thanks, Councillor Williams-Price. Do we have any questions?
No questions, Chair.
Any comments?
No comments, Chair.
We'll take that to the vote then, please, Geraint.
That is carried, Chair.
Thanks, Geraint. We'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the Pride in Place Impact Fund, to consider the report of the Chief Executive. Councillor Jamie Scrivens, could I invite you to address the Council, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is just to provide an update on the UK Government's Pride in Place Impact Fund, specifically the allocation of funds to Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council and the programmes where the money would be spent. As you will recall, back in January this year, as a Cabinet, we agreed to allocate 1.5 million of funding towards two of the strategic priorities within the Pride in Place Impact Fund. What we've recently identified is there's actually funds in the Local Growth Fund that can be allocated towards a heritage asset. So what this report is actually saying is, following that decision, the alternative funding being identified, what we want to do is maximise the impact of funding and propose that the allocation we had made under Pride in Place Impact Fund is now redirected towards a package of capital projects focused on regeneration, enhancement and long-term sustainable community assets and public spaces within the town and the northern areas of the wards. So this will be things such as parks, playground development, public art and key building and asset enhancements in those areas. But if I can take you to the recommendation of 2.1, is that the delivery of the Pride in Place Impact Fund against the purposes identified in the report be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Scriven. I'm happy to second the report, so we'll take that to members' questions.
No questions, Chair.
Comments?
No comments, Chair.
Excellent. Shall we take that to the vote, please, Geraint?
That is carried, Chair.
Thanks, Geraint. We'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the Food Service Plan 26-27, to consider a report from the Director of Governance and Resources. Councillor David Jones will be taking this report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present the Food Service Plan 2026-27 for Cabinet's consideration today. This plan is a statutory requirement of the Food Standards Agency Framework Agreement and sets out how the Council will deliver its food safety and food standard responsibilities over the coming year. At its heart, the plan is about protecting public health, preventing foodborne illness, supporting businesses to comply with food law, and giving residents confidence that food sold within the county borough is safe. Before turning to the challenges ahead, I would like to highlight some of the significant achievements delivered during the last year. The Food Service has successfully completed its 3-year recovery programme for low-risk food hygiene and food standard interventions. As a result, the service is now fully compliant with the intervention frequencies required under the Food Law Code of Practice. And importantly, there are currently no overdue food hygiene or food standards inspection in any risk category. This represents a considerable achievement and reflects the commitment and professionalism of the environmental health team. This progress has been made despite ongoing resource pressures, increasing demands on the service and the need to respond to emerging public health issues. The team has worked exceptionally hard to maintain statutory compliance and continue to deliver the continued delivery of critical food safety functions that often go unseen but are essential in preventing food poisoning outbreaks and protecting consumers. Looking ahead, however, there are a number of significant challenges that will need to be managed during 2026-27. The most pressing issue remains the resource shortfall within this service. Whilst the current service has successfully maintained compliance, this has relied heavily on overtime arrangements and has inevitably limited the capacity to undertake wider proactive food safety initiatives and other important work streams. The service currently faces a deficit of 0.5 full-time equivalent officer resource, and the pressures are expected to increase over the coming year. A major challenge will be the implementation of the new food standards delivery model, which must be introduced by October 2026. This change is expected to significantly increase the number of businesses classified as higher risk, and therefore requiring more frequent interventions. The transition will also create an immediate backlog of inspections as premises are reclassed against the new criteria. We also continue to face challenges around workforce resilience, recruitment and retention of suitably qualified environmental health officers, and ensuring service continuity during national public health incidents such as the recent Hunter virus response, which required staff to be diverted from routine regulatory work. Despite these challenges, the food service remains a vital frontline public protection service. The work undertaken by officers safeguard residents, support responsible businesses, and contributes directly to the Council's wider well-being objectives. The report before Cabinet therefore seeks two recommendations. One, that Cabinet approves the Food Service Plan 2026-27, and two, that the Cabinet notes the identified resource shortfall required to fully deliver the plan and meet future statutory demands. I would like to place on record my thanks to the Environmental Health team for their dedication and professionalism in delivering this important service, and commend the Food Service Plan 26-27 to Cabinet for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Lewis?
Happy to second the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. We'll take that then to members' questions.
No questions, Chair.
Members' comments?
No comments, Chair.
Shall we take that to the vote, please, Geraint?
Yeah, that's carried, Chair.
Thanks, Geraint. Agenda item 7 is to deal with any other urgent business deemed urgent by the Chair. I have none. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 8, which is the exempt item. In order for the following to be considered in private, it is suggested the public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 14 under Part 4, Schedule 12A, Section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. I'm happy to propose. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Anne Williams-Price.
Happy second.
Thanks, Councillor Anne Williams-Price. Okay.
We need to take that to the vote.
Shall we take that to vote, please?
Yeah, that's carried, Chair.
Thanks, Geraint.